everybody, and thank you for coming to the BillTrack50 webinar. We are getting started, and I've got Brianna joining me. Thank you for coming, Brianna.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I am here to teach you about legislation and how to use BillTrack50. Thank you for being my guinea pig. I know you are somewhat familiar, but not entirely so with the whole process. So you're perfect. All right, here we go. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So I am Karen. I'll be presenting today, and today we are also featuring Brianna. And we'll be simply going through the, going through the legislative process, and then a little bit about how to use BillTrack50 to keep up with bills. And as mentioned, we'll open up for questions at the end, but by no means do you need to hold your questions. Just type them when they occur to you. We'll stop and address them if it makes sense. All right, Brianna, you ready?
I'm ready.
Strapped in?
Yep.
All right.
Ready to go.
The legislative process. What you need to know when tracking legislation. So obviously, to be able to track legislation, you need to understand where it starts and where it goes. Luckily, much like a train, pretty easy to track. See where it's supposed to be. All right. We're all familiar with Bill, are we not?
Yes.
Were you a little too young for school?
No, I remember him.
Okay, you remember little Bill?
I'm just a Bill, yeah.
I'm just a Bill. So we all hopefully know the very basics of our civic duties and how the legislative process is supposed to work. I shamelessly stole this graphic from the NCSL website, which I will reference a few more times in this presentation because they do a great job. But this is the basics, and you probably hopefully know this much. Somebody has an idea for a new law or to change an old law or even to repeal an old law. They draft up a bill to do it. It gets introduced by somebody in one of the chambers, the lower or the upper. And then once they agree and they like it, they pass it on to the next chamber. And then if they change it, it's got to go back and get approved. And ultimately, it winds up with the governor or with the president, if we're talking about Congress. And he signs it into law, or if he doesn't sign it, I just learned this, in most states, still becomes law. Only a few places, if the governor doesn't sign it, does it not become law. But he can explicitly veto bills, of course, and then that sends them back through the whole process if the legislature wants to take it back up. So that's pretty much hopefully what you remember, Brianna, of the legislative process.
Yes. I think it would be helpful to cover just the differences between the two chambers really quick.
Yes.
Like the purpose of why we have to.
Okay, fair question. So we've got the upper chamber, which is the Senate, and we've got 50 of those, plus Congress. They are supposed to be the slower, more deliberative body. So they have a longer term. So they're not elected as often. So in theory, they're under slightly less pressure. So they can be more thoughtful and more deliberative. And then we've got the lower chamber, which in some states is called the House, and in Congress is the House. And in some states, it's the Assembly. And they're the same thing. It's just the terminology is slightly different. They'll have usually, well, possibly more members, usually smaller districts representing fewer people, often elected every 2 years, so that they are supposed to be the voice of the people, the people's house, if you will. And that is modeled off the House of Commons in England when we were first setting this whole thing up, whereas the Senate is more supposed to be the House of Lords, although we don't have aristocrats, we just have senators. Anyway, so yes, so the House is supposed to be more rambunctious. Importantly, the House is also where they're supposed to originate bills that are spending money. So that is the difference there. Everybody has a representative in each house, so you can look up who represents you in each chamber. I've got a link down here for the Ballotpedia page that does that, or you can use, didn't mean to do that, or you can use the BillTrack50 app, or you can just Google it, or go to your state legislature website. There's plenty of ways to find out. Right, so then of course you can call and write to your senator or your representative, and you should. They need your opinions.
So is it best to find out where the bill is? Like if it's in the first or second chamber, is that like, then do I contact those legislators, or is there any benefit to contacting both chambers, even if the bill isn't currently in that chamber?
That is a fantastic question. But you skipped ahead a slide.
Oh, whoops.
No, perfect.
Oh, you can answer that one later.
We will get to that. But yes, that is a key piece of information. So you've taken away what you're supposed to take away from this discussion. So there's 2 facts to know. One of them is most states don't actually meet all year. So correct me if I'm wrong, you're in Colorado.
Yes, I am.
And so based on this map, the purple states are the states that are done for the year. The green states are still meeting, and the yellow states are the ones that are in special session. Although I think Kentucky started in special session since I made this slide. So it's important to know if they're even meeting, because you're just wasting your time if they're not meeting, unless you're talking about a policy in general. So do you know when Colorado quit?
I do not.
Of course you do not. It's your job, or you're really quite politically active. You're not going to, I mean, nobody knows. So there's no shame in that. I've linked to the NCSL calendar where you can look that up. And this graphic is from the NCSL website. So they'll let you know when the session is scheduled to begin and when the session is scheduled to end. And if a special session starts, they'll also put that information up. So this link is a great resource for keeping up with what's going on in your state. And I've got, here it is. Here's the actual website. And so we can click on Colorado and it says, oh, they adjourned May 3rd. Great. All right. So that is super useful information. I linked in the LegiScan schedule so you can see ahead of time when they're going to be starting and finishing across all 50 states. And then some states meet for 1 year. So at the end of the year, all those bills are dead. Some states meet for 2 years at a time. And that's called carryover, if the bill can go into the next year. So I've also got a link listing for you all of the states that have carryover. About half of them do, about half of them don't. So you need to know that too. Usually you can tell also from BillTrack50. I'll point that out. All right, so that's one major thing, is when do the states meet? The other is the bill number, and this kind of gets back to your question. So all the bills have a number. The first 2 letters is the chamber. So if you had to make a guess, Brianna?
I'm going to go with House.
Yes, exactly. So it's just House bill. Some states just have an H or an HB. And as I mentioned, some states are in assembly, so that would be an A or an AB. So those are all the lower chamber, and then you've got S or SB or the upper chamber. So that lets you know where it was introduced, which is going to be key here in a minute when we're deciding who we should be contacting. So good heads up on that, Brianna. And then the number is mostly chronological, but not entirely. So sometimes they're symbolic, which can be fun. So I noticed a marijuana bill in California last year that was 420. So good on them. Oh. And I just learned from a blog post that just went up on our site that HR 40, which is Congress, that is the reparations study bill. And that is referring to the 40 acres that we promised the slaves after emancipation. So that is a symbolic number as well. Mostly they're going to be chronologic, with the smallest bills being either the rules or the budget or the bills they think are most important. And then on down through the session, then the numbers just count up. So it gives you a little bit about if the bill might be super important, but otherwise not that much information. And then the bill numbers reset each session. So HB 101 this year, it's going to be a totally different bill next year. So once the session is over, the numbers are pretty much meaningless.
Wow, that's good to know. I did not know that.
Yeah. It would be nice if they just kept going, but they're not database people, they're politicians, which shows in a lot of ways. And I've got a link down here if you want to read more about that. But let's get into actually using BillTrack50 now to figure out what's going on with the bill, who you should contact, you know, the tracking. All right. So this is a movie in case you want to watch me do this for half an hour, although you're doing that right now. So on we go. Place we've got to start is writing a query, right? So much like Google, you can put in words, you can put quotes around them to keep a phrase together. We use asterisk for our wildcard, and we just put spaces in between terms, in between keywords. So here we go, BillTrack50 search screen. And is there anything you've got on your mind lately, or can we just do the, what do you think? marijuana by default?
Sure, I'm in Colorado. Why not?
All right, so I can just put in marijuana as my search term, and boom, it says you have been away too long. Let me log back in. All right, in I go. So marijuana. Okay, so then it comes up and it gives me a bunch of results. However, there are 3,000 bills that mention marijuana, and this grid's only going to show me the first 500. So I'm going to want to narrow this down a little bit further. So as I mentioned, you could put in a phrase. So I'm going to say sales tax because it turns out that's what I'm actually interested in. So if I add that in with just a space in between the terms, then I've got 262 bills that are about sales tax. And it could be that I don't know if it's going to be tax or taxes or taxation. So that's where I can put the star at the end. That could be pretty handy, huh?
Yeah, I did not know that.
So, all right, so there we go. So now I've got my search, didn't narrow it down, but what are you going to do? Because it's just sales tax. So now I've got an option. I could say any of if I want marijuana or sales tax. So that's going to give me a lot of results. But it could be that I actually want marijuana or cannabis because either word is good enough for me. And then also, no, we'll just say marijuana or cannabis. So that's going to chunk me out even more. So again, now I've got 4,000 bills. So that is the types of searches there are. All of means all of the words have to be in there, or any of means I'm putting in some synonymous words. So you've actually got the option there. Make sense?
Yeah, I did not know this.
And then if I've got, we'll go back to our marijuana and sales tax. Now, presumably any bill that mentions both marijuana and sales tax is about taxing marijuana. But I could also say, to be sure, I want those to be near each other. So this is going to narrow it down. It's not a phrase. So sales tax is just those two words in that order with a space in between them. It's this exact thing. If I say near, I'm saying I want marijuana and sales tax, but I don't know if it's going to be sales tax on marijuana or marijuana sales tax will be. Like, I'm not quite exactly sure what order it's going to be or if there'll be a couple words in between. So this says I'm going to search when these two words are within 10 or so words of each other. Pretty handy. So now if I search, it's going to narrow down to 138 bills that have marijuana and sales tax in the same sentence, more or less.
And I can also then filter by my state, right?
Absolutely. So now I could say I'm only interested in Colorado, and search again. And now I've got just the Colorado sales tax bills.
Cool.
Very nice. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the Colorado. That is all of the key things about writing a query. Do you have any questions about writing a query, or does that make sense?
No, I think that makes sense.
Fantastic. So we've got these tips. The one thing I want to point out is if you get our pro account, then you could actually do all of and any of at the same time. Pretty exciting. All right, so moving on to using the grid. So we saw the grid, but it's actually got a bunch of different functionality that can help you with your tracking. So let me pull this back, get our marijuana search back up. All right, so marijuana, sales tax, olive, great, search. So now I've got this grid of my results down here. So one of the things you immediately realized is, I'm not going to look through 262 bills. So you could just narrow it by state. But there's also various bits of information here. So I've got this action date column, for example. So I can click on that and see what's had the most recent actions. I can drag this over here. So now I'm starting to get into a little bit of my tracking action. So what's happening? What states are doing something? This will show they've got a hearing scheduled for yesterday. This one actually got sent to the governor. So we can see like what's going on in our topic. I also can use this little magnifying glass down here as a filter. Have you ever noticed that?
I have never used it.
All right. So now
I've seen it.
so I can add in another narrow down. I can say, just show me ones that also have the word medical in the name. And now I'm down to 33 bills. And then I can work my way through different items like that. Or if I'm only interested in bills that were originated in the Senate, I can do that. If I only want one state and I'm going to work my way through and like look at the states state by state, I can use the filter to do that. So the filter can actually be pretty darn handy. All right, so the grid is a little more useful than you might think on first blush.
Yeah.
All right, so we covered, we'll click the bill number here in a second, and then you get the first 500, so you might need to narrow down more. You can sort by clicking on the column name. You can drag the columns. I showed you filtering, and I'll point out the legislator tab. Legislators. So you can also search for legislators. So you can search for them by name. My guy is Alec. There he is. And that'll give you a bunch of info about the legislators. Similar.
So when I'm kind of searching through like for different bills or legislators, like, is there any option to export maybe like a list of bills, or is that built into like a paid version? Or
that is built into the paid version.
Gotcha. Also handy.
Also handy. So let's look at medical marijuana and then about autism. Click on the bill number to see what that does. All right, so this is how we get into the actual bill. And it's showing me where it's at in the process. And as discussed, Colorado's already done. But during the year, these would have lit up as they happened. And we've got basic info about it. And then you can click on the sponsors. You can see if your person is one of the sponsors. So that's pretty handy. But here we see it's in the House. So that means, or it was introduced in the House. So that means up until it crosses over to the other chamber, it's your House, it's your representative that you want to call. And then once it crosses over, it's your senator that you want to call. And then by if this had been a Senate bill and it was still in committee, then you would want to call your senator. And if this was a Senate bill, once it crossed over, you would want to call your representative. Did that make sense?
Yep.
So that is how you can use the bill number along with this graphic to figure out who you should be calling. You also have the bill text, so here's what it's actually saying. And you might think bills are big and scary, they kind of are, but most state bills are actually not that long and they're reasonably readable. So certainly Congress, they can write some big, massive bills, and the budget bill for most states is pretty big because it's like the whole state budget. But most of the other bills, you actually can glance through them and make heads or tails of them. So don't be afraid of trying to do this. It's totally a reasonable thing to type in some stuff and see what bills, what different states are doing. You know, don't be shy. Like, this isn't too intimidating, right, Brianna?
No, it's now that I understand it better.
Couple things. The cross out is what they might be removing from the law, and the underline is what they're adding to the law. That's we formatted it that way across all of the states. For some of the states, they represent it with blue or with square brackets or with different things. We've made it so all the states are underlined for inserting stuff and crossing out for removing stuff. And then over here, this version, this is how it was introduced, right? And then it went to, maybe they changed it. You know, so as it goes through the process, and we wind up with our final version. So if you ever want to go back in time, you can, but we'll by default obviously show you the newest one.
Yeah, I did not know you had that.
Yeah, so cool. There's a whole stack of bills there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just show you the newest one on the top. And action history will tell you where it's at. So as you go through, you can see when a hearing is scheduled, when, you know, how it went, going through, sent over to the Senate, signed, sent to the governor, signed. So you can see the process unfold. Very exciting.
I also noticed you have a compare feature for the bill.
Yes, but again, that is a paid feature.
Oh, gotcha. That seems handy too.
So since I am a paid user, I could compare these two versions, and it'll show me in red and green what was added and what was removed in between the two.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, so that is kind of some of the analysis. If I wasn't a subscriber, then that compare just isn't there. All right, and then you can look at the votes. And the thing I want to highlight on the votes is that we've got this little detail guy. So we've got the Senate voting on it, and we can see how the vote went down. So the yeses broken up by party and the noes broken up by party. So that can give you a picture of if it's like super partisan and just stuck, or if it's not. And you can see how it went in the other chamber and kind of decide if you think it's got any chance in this chamber, depending on like, was it super party lines or what's going on. You can also see how every individual voted. Maybe that's too much info.
Cool.
Yeah, this is a great, is it like super partisan? And this one just mostly was popular, so I wouldn't say super partisan. And if we look at how the House voted, they loved it. So everybody is all for curing autism or mitigating at any rate. Okay, and then the other last thing I want to point out is we'll always have a link to the official document. So this will take you to the state legislature. So if you want to read even more information than we've presented, we always have the link so that you can go straight to the legislature. Hopefully it's a time saver.
Yeah, I like that.
And then we've got our people links, and I already showed you what a person will look like. Hopefully their official website. Usually we've got some sort of social media for them, whatever it might be. Sometimes we've got a LinkedIn, I don't know, different links. How to reach them, different emails we found for them, links to Ballotpedia so you can see their election results, link to follow the money so you can see their campaign information. That's pretty exciting. The bills they've sponsored, their votes, the committees they're on, and a little bit of information about them. Sometimes we've got a little bit of a story. Often we just have the basics. At any rate, you can go to Ballotpedia and read all about them. All right. So again, you can come straight to the legislators using the legislator search or click on their name anywhere it appears on BillTrack50. And that was very super quick tour through BillTrack50. Did I leave you with any questions?
Let me think. I thought I saw somewhere that you mentioned like widgets and bill alerts. Was that in that group?
Yes. All right. It's like you've sort of seen BillTrack50 before. So moving on. Oh, but don't forget about the app. So the app is great because you can type in your address and we'll show you all your people, but then you can tap to call them or tap to tweet them right from your phone. So that's kind of fun.
And so do I have to have a BillTrack50 account to use that app?
No, you can use it. It's totally free. This is the link, or you can just search for BillTrack50 in the store. So much like BillTrack50, that's free to use all you want. If you have an account, you can log in and look at your bills. But if you don't, no problem. You can still search for bills and read them on your phone. But more likely, search for legislators and contact them. That's what is really, right? All right, so using the data, we went through all these items. So this is just a little reminder for you. We've got the link to the legislature website, all the different versions of the bill, graphical breakdown of the votes. Those were the highlights I wanted to show you. And then on the legislators, we've got links off to more info. And in states with full-time legislatures, and especially for Congress, we've got a tab full of staff, which can be really handy. And then remember, you can look up your own legislators, and I give you the link again. All right, so if you're good, let's look at some of those advanced tools you were just asking me about.
Oh, okay.
All right, so this will be super quick, but just a little peek at what else BillTrack50's got for you. So, all right, let me pull this back over. Okay, so here's my BillTrack50. Now this is my account, and these are the different topics that I have searched for and saved in the past. So I have like the census one, and I see that there's 2 new bills. These little check marks mean yesterday. Kentucky in their special session, bill about the census and the budget that we just heard about, it mentions the census. No surprise there. And then nothing's gone on. These states are out. Down here, we've got civil asset forfeiture. These 2 had actions. Anyway, as you can see, I've saved different searches, and this is keeping track for me if new bills are introduced or if bills that I am following have some sort of change to them. I can set it up to email me this grid each morning. I can choose which topics to put in it. And then I'll get this little grid in the morning so that I can see every day what's going on with my bills. So that is the tracking that BillTrack50 can do. So that's pretty fun. And then if I go in here.
So in that, just to clarify, so the email is only an email of like if something's changed in the bill.
Right. And you can even say which changes. So you can say, I only want to know if there's new bills, or actually let me know whenever there's a vote. So you can know how much you want. But we'll just roll it up into one digest for you every day. So even if you check all the boxes, you're just going to get one email from us letting you know what happened yesterday.
Cool.
This is like what qualifies to go into your email. Yeah. All right. So just like the grid before, this is the same, but it now has an export button. Plus a little map. Hey, that's where the civil asset forfeiture bills are. And a few other little tools that you can do. You can remove bills that you don't actually want to follow, that kind of thing. You can add columns and put your own notes in here. There's more data to choose from. So, you know, you got all these different columns you can add, stuff like that. You can even put your own notes in. And then on the query tab, this is where we can do the all of and the any of together. So here, this is what the query was to get the civil asset bills. I have a none of that I can use. I can say I only want them like in certain statuses. I can say what time period I want. I can even add bills in by bill number. So yeah, you can look at maybe historic bills and only look at things that made it through. And that'll reduce the number of bills, of course. So this is 157 bills that actually passed. So you can have a lot of fun with that, like setting up searches and seeing what's gone on over time. That's less tracking and more research, but you can see how that might come in handy. Also give you a little bit of insight if your thing might pass this time. And then
or how people have voted before, you know.
Yes. Exactly. All right, and then as you mentioned, we have some widgets. So you can actually grab this box and put it right on your website, or you can change it into a map and put the map on your website. So I've got a couple examples of that. City of Missoula. So this is their site, and they've got this great little widget down here showing what bills. They've even highlighted which ones they like. And then they let you narrow down and say, well, what about specifically, I don't know, how about criminal justice bills? So then that narrows it down to show you just the criminal justice ones. So
oh yeah, I like that.
That is how the widget can work. And you can color it and size it so it looks great on your site. I think they've done a lovely job. It looks just perfect. And then the map. This is a good example map. So this is Normal, marijuana legalization group. And they made their map marijuana colored, which I like. And then anybody can click on a state. So I'll click on California, and it'll slide over and show you the bills on that state. And they used you can add your own information to add in a link to say what they want you to do. And actually click on it. And they've set up a page where it says, please call and this is what you should tell them. So that's pretty nice. So they've made good use of the map. This can be a great way to obviously display a bunch of information at once, but also, who can resist clicking on a map? Like, your finger's probably itching, you want to click on color.
Yeah, you're going to do it.
You.
I also like that it's like the color gradient, so I know like where it's most active.
Exactly. So
different legislation.
It looks cool, but it also highlights for you like which states have the most activity.
Iowa's my home state. I wonder what's going on there.
Wow. See, you can't help it. You want to click on a map?
Yeah, no, I want
to know. They didn't pass very many, except for. All right, so that is the map, and I'm going to show one more example. We also have this grid, so if you want to share the whole grid instead of the little things so that you can put your own comments in here. So he's got like tons of information. This is Forward Kentucky, a progressive group in Kentucky. So then you also have a scorecard. So he put in whether he liked a bill or not, and then added together how everybody voted, and shows who voted the right way and the wrong way based on his opinion about if a bill was good or bad. So we've got a group of bills. These are the bills he decided to take a position on. We can show him each one of these bars is color-coded by party, and then what percentage of the time they voted the right way.
So kind of, I guess I would kind of guess by this map that they are more on the Democratic side.
They're more supportive of the Democratic Party, it appears.
Yes.
And then I can narrow it down to just one topic, and it recalculates. So if there's a topic you care the most about, you can check that out. So that's,
oh, wow. Yeah.
And then we also show the districts. And that's all well and good, but this is pretty geeky. I'm kind of a data girl, kind of a math girl. But we also have a visual scorecard. So if you think the people that you're trying to communicate with would appreciate faces, we have what we consider to be the pretty version, the visual scorecard. And hey, Brianna, what do you know about this?
Looks like you can enter in your address.
Oh, I could enter in my address. So let me say that I live in the capital, which I believe is Frankfort, Kentucky. All right, and it narrows down to show me just my representative. That's handy dandy.
And then it looks like, yeah, so then on the right side, you can kind of filter different results, or I could search for a specific legislator if I know who I'm looking for.
Right, and do you know who wrote this scorecard, who made this scorecard?
I did.
You! Hooray! All right, so Brianna, outed as a programmer. Coder. Too bad you're not a wonk. Love this. Everybody loves this. It's so engaging. Here's what I like the most is you color-coded to say if this yes was a good yes or a bad yes, or a good no or a bad no. Love that. Love the color coding on the votes. So this is great, easy to understand. Anybody can make sense of this. So this is the pretty version, which is often appropriate, unless you want all those charts and graphs, which is my version, which is often less appropriate. But anyway, so those are the paid things, and I went a couple minutes over, but let's go back to the presentation. Right, so we covered the professional tools, and we took a tour through the different sharing tools we have, which I think is our secret sauce. I think that's what BillTrack50 does the best. I think we have some really nice sharing things. So here's a bunch more examples if you want to see what other BillTrack50 customers have done. This link will take you to a whole page full of examples, including more of those beautiful scorecards. All right, thank you. Sorry we went a couple minutes over. Happy to take any questions you might have. So feel free to type those in if you can figure out how, or email me. And you can find Brianna. Where can they find you?
Good question. I wasn't prepared for that one.
Scorecard.
Oh, it's legislativescorecard.us.
Okay. All right. Did you have any questions about the legislative process or how you actually use BillTrack50 to look at bills and figure out tracking?
No, I actually learned a lot from this presentation. There's definitely like features that I didn't know existed, or, some of the filtering I wasn't familiar with. So that was helpful for me.
Especially with the free tools, the filtering is super helpful.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like, people are using BillTrack50 to try to make a difference. And so I'm kind of interested to hear a little bit about like what results that you see. Like do you feel like it helps people change legislation, or do you feel like it's more informational for them? Informational is what I'm saying.
That is a great question, is how much influence can you actually have? And so, some people use BillTrack50 just to keep up with current laws so they can stay in compliance with them. And that's totally valid. You may want to follow the law if you're a business.
Yeah.
People who are trying to, who are pro-marijuana legalization or anti-marijuana legalization, or if you have an opinion about abortion or guns or any of the topics of the day, then your representative is actually interested in what you think, believe it or not, especially at the state level. So I call my state representative quite often, and got to know by name the person who most often answered the phone. And after calling many times, I actually said, does this matter? Do my calls matter? And he said that if they get 3 or 4 calls on the same topic that sound like it's somebody telling their genuine opinion or their genuine experience and not just someone reading a script, then they really take notice. They're like, ooh, that's a bit of a groundswell. And if they get 10 to 20 calls, then that might potentially actually shift the legislator's opinion.
Gotcha.
So you can genuinely make a difference by calling the right person at the right time, especially if other people are concerned on the same topic. The other thing.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, please.
I was kind of wondering, so I know you also had a slide where there was like different ways to take action, and there's like social media or emailing or calling and different stuff like that. And you also do see where there's these different petitions online where people give you a script. And so I'm interested to hear what you see has been most influential for, like for the people that you're interacting with, like for the people using BillTrack50. Like, what's the best way to make a difference?
Right. So if you need help with something, if you need help with an agency, then Twitter or Facebook is a perfectly valid way to reach out. But if you're trying to express your opinion and get them to change their mind, it's more helpful to have a discussion. So calling turns out to be the best way. So they do tally Facebook comments that are thoughtful, tweets that are thoughtful, and not just, somebody yelling in all caps and not making any sense. They do tally every email that is sensible. So if you send a good email explaining your opinion, they'll tally it. But it's the calls that have the most impact. Plus, you get to talk to the person and ask them questions. So when you call, you won't get the legislator. You won't get your senator. They're not answering the phone. You'll get their aide. And you can ask for the person working on that issue if you want to talk to them about the strategy they're taking or if they think it's going to pass. So you can get information from them as well as giving them your opinion. Of course, you can just call and tell them your opinion. But from talking to those aides, the calls are the most impactful. They'll make the most difference. They'll actually take notes about what changes were intended. Otherwise, they're mostly just tallying up support or oppose. And signing a petition, I'm not sure, that because they only care about the people who are their constituents. So if you sign a petition, they don't have any way to know who those people are. So the petitions don't carry that much weight. But that is an excellent question. The other thing that I was going to say about the scorecards is those can be a great way to motivate legislators if you have an entire agenda. So if you're progressive or if you're conservative or if you are just concerned with fiscal items, whatever it might be, knowing that a scorecard is going up and knowing that you have people that are then going to call based on how they look on the scorecard, that can be a good way. And we have heard from lots of scorecard customers that that has had an impact, that legislators have actually called them to ask them how they're going to score before they even take their vote. So that's pretty powerful. I've also heard people say that they printed out the research that they'd done on BillTrack50 and took it with them when they went to talk to their representative. And their representative was so impressed with the information they had at their fingertips that they said, well, I know you're serious, so I'm going to listen to you, and then actually did and took note of their opinions. And so that, when my customer called and said that they had heard that from their senator, it almost made me cry. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Give you the information to make you know what you're talking about, sound smart, and actually be able to make a difference. That's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, that was cool. Because sometimes I think it's easy to feel like legislators aren't listening either to, like your organization's opinion or to like an individual, even just me calling as an individual, you hope you're not wasting your time. So I think that's really cool to hear.
Especially because it all feels so partisan these days. And
Mm-hmm.
even at the state level, it is pretty partisan, but not completely. And you can maybe, affect some language in the bill. And you can occasionally affect a vote or bring up a topic that they didn't realize. Yep. So it's not hopeless, guys. It's our country. We can make it better.
Yeah, it's cool. I love it.
Thank you, Brianna. And thank you, everybody who came. Please feel free to email me if you have any further questions. I'm happy to help. If you'd like some help writing your own queries, if you'd like a demo of the Pro Tools, any of that, drop a note. Happy to help. And thank you, Brianna. Have a great day.
Yeah, no problem. See ya.
All right. Bye-bye.